Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. You may be seated. Our first agenda item is agenda item 1A, the report of the Sheriff's Department.
Excuse me, Mayor, we need to call roll.
Okay.
Commissioner Hanna.
Here.
Commissioner Hoofnagel.
Here.
Vice Mayor Palumbo asked to be excused. Commissioner Flagg.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here. Thank you. Okay, you may proceed.
Good evening. Last month was a relatively quiet month. However, there are two things that I would like to address just for everybody in the audience. There were a set of keys that were stolen from the beach while somebody was out there. At this time, I don't know if it was a resident, but basically what I would suggest is when out on the beach, try to make sure that all personal belongings aren't left unattended, or they're at least hidden somewhere where somebody can't just walk right up, reach in the bag and take whatever. The other thing is bicycle thefts. I'm not saying it's an issue within the city. However, a couple bicycles were taken, and they were taken from the front yard of a residence. So again, just like with the items on the beach, I would suggest to make sure that the bicycles aren't left unattended and they're secured in a garage or at least locked to something. But other than that, relatively quiet month in the city.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the sheriff at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to let the audience know tonight that our sheriff is here at 6:45 before our meetings, so if you would like to talk to him personally in the future at one of our meetings, he will be here to speak to you. And with that, I would like to have someone that I care a lot about, our next speaker, Nick DeSiglia. Know Nick, we've known each other since we were fairly young. His mother was a very good friend of mine, and he actually bought my house in Indian Rocks Beach. And I love him to death, and he is our representative. And we asked him to come here tonight just to kind of give us a follow-up, what's going on in the state, and how he's doing his first term. Okay, Nick.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, thanks for having me today. I am a resident here in Indian Rocks Beach. I've been for 22 years. And it's an honor for me to represent Indian Rocks Beach, District 66 in the Florida House of Representatives. Tonight I just want to give you a brief kind of a legislative summary of what we did this past session. Session ran from the beginning of March through the middle of May. We passed a $91 billion budget, a balanced budget. Some of the focus and big issues that we tackled were, of course, education, healthcare reform. As far as healthcare, we know, healthcare costs have been skyrocketing each and every year. We try to inject some free market principles, deregulate some of the healthcare issues that we have to begin driving those costs down. When it comes to education, we focused on school choice, increase the vouchers for low-income families. And me personally, I serve on 6 different committees: State Affairs, Health and Human Services, Pre-K through 12 Innovation. I serve on Justice Appropriations. So I've got a pretty large scope of work that I do in the legislature, and it's a lot of work, obviously, but we have good people in place to really advance the agenda that we're trying to accomplish in Tallahassee. I do want to touch on 2 things. One of my main sponsored bills was House Bill 5, which spoke to the surtax referendums in the state. Prior to the bill being passed and signed by Governor DeSantis, anytime a local government, a school board, county commission were to attempt to raise our taxes via sales surtax, they were conducting these elections really at any time they wanted. So we had turnout at 15%, on average of 22%. So House Bill 5 requires that surtax increases, which is our sales tax, has to occur during a general election. So that's any even-numbered years in November. The goal there is to make sure that we have a high turnout, much higher than 22%. Obviously, if folks want to raise taxes on themselves, that's fine, but we want to make sure that we have as many people to the ballot box as possible. I do know that here in Indian Rocks Beach and several other beach communities across the state, that the short-term rental issue is something that brings Mayor Kennedy up to Tallahassee to testify to committee. That is a good thing. The issue did not get through the process last year. It tried to essentially create a regulatory framework for each and every municipality in the state. I spoke with the bill sponsor, Representative Jamie Grant, a few days ago. That bill is going to come through the process again. Don't know what form that's going to be, but I'm going to encourage you and any other commissioners on this commission, and anybody here in the audience, to come to Tallahassee. Let me know your concerns. I do take that very seriously. And so, you know, the ask here with local governments is to be part of that process right in the very beginning. The message to the League of Cities is to be at the table at the very beginning. They failed to come to the table throughout the whole process last year. It was, you know, disappointing considering that they're a very loud voice when it comes to this specific issue. Any help that I can give you, Mayor, or any council members here or commissioners, I'm happy to help you navigate through the process. I personally did not take a vote on any of those bills last year. And, you know, again, there's two sides to every issue. I do know how important it is and how it's impacted Indian Rocks Beach. Again, I take that I cannot stress that enough how seriously I take that. And so I look forward to working with you and any other commissioners, not only with short-term rental issues, but any issues that we face in the legislature this coming session.
Thank you, Representative. Is there any of the commissioners have anything they would like to ask or say to Representative? No? Okay. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Nick was always, I bugged him. He would be on his ride home on Thursday night, and we would talk on his way home for 45 minutes. I thought I was saving him from, you know, falling asleep at the wheel or something. You know, but he was very good, and a lot of people from Indian Rocks Beach went up when we went for the vacation rentals. So I appreciate you, and we'll be back with you again. So
You better be.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to open up public comment. That's our agenda item number 2. Any member of the audience may come forward, give their name and address, and state any comment or concern they may have over any matter which the City Commission has control, excluding agenda items. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Hi, John.
Hi, good evening. John Fansfield, 448 Harbor Drive South. As you know, I'm very concerned about threats to the small-scale character of our city. We've seen proceeding in the overdevelopment process that caused such trouble in Madeira Beach. Does any of this sound familiar? Madeira Beach developed a new comprehensive plan. The new comprehensive plan is now on IRB's agenda. Their commission approved new ordinances to get around zoning through plan development, PDs. IRB's commission made a plan unit development, PUD, ordinance that gets around zoning. Madeira Beach chose a consultant and paid for a study to justify their development ambitions. IRB hired Ford Pinellas for visioning. Look at their study. It's titled Growth and Development. I talked to hundreds of residents earlier this year, and not a single one said that they wanted more growth and development. Quite the contrary, they were very concerned about more growth and more development. In every IRB election, every candidate talks about preserving our small town character. In the past dozen years, in spite of repeated requests by residents, commissioners have done nothing to preserve the small-scale character of the city we love. Commissioners have said we can't do it because of the Burke-Harris Act. That's just not true. There's a lot that can be done. Here's a sample of just 3 things you can do to help preserve IRB's character. 1, work to establish historic zones for small cottages, old motels, and businesses. 2, purchase development rights. On Long Island, this saved farmlands from becoming a carpet of condos. 3, encourage extensive remodeling of single-story and 2-story homes and businesses. Once these legacy businesses are extensively restored, it's far less likely for them to be demolished and replaced with the largest building possible. There's a lot of other ideas. Our residents have a wealth of ideas on how we can actually protect our city. The loss of scale, the loss of character of a town happens foot by foot and property by property. If the commission cares about the small-scale character of our town, they should turn their efforts to preservation and protection instead of growth and development. I urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone who would like to come up during public comment at this time? This is only for agenda items we won't be talking about. Is there anyone who would like to come?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Sistrick. I live at 448 Harbor Drive South. This is going to come up in discussion tonight, but it's not an agenda item, and it is relating to our fire district, and they are in the process of getting funds from Pinellas County for a fireboat. In the past, they've had, and still do have, a Zodiac that they can use for the beach, but they have not had anything for use in the intercoastal. So I'm hoping that our city will be able to work with them to provide a boat slip for them down at the Keegan Clare area, those boat docks. And that would give us a fireboat for anybody who is in the intercoastal and has an emergency on a boat or by land in the intercoastal. That would give them that capability. So there's nobody else with a fireboat between Clearwater and St. Petersburg. So all up and down, from the Reddingtons and Indian Shores, Bel Air Beach, all that intercoastal area is open and needs somebody to service it. So I hope we can put that together for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, Pete.
Good evening, everybody. Peter Souchon, 1206 Gulf Boulevard, Unit F. I'm coming before the commission, it's my 3rd appearance, to talk about bicycle safety and Gulf Boulevard. My first appearance here was May 14th, my second was July 9th, and now today, September 10th. At the first meeting, there seemed to be, when I talked about the need for the commission to consider doing something about bike lanes on Gulf Boulevard between 5th Avenue and 28th. There seemed to be at that time at least one of the commissioners, I think it was Commissioner Palumbo, if my memory serves, who seemed interested in pursuing things. Subsequently on July 9th, I raised it again. There wasn't any comment at all from the commission, but I did have a communication from Dean Sharman, which I read for the record, that the commission has made decisions and is not going to pursue any other options to do bike lanes or anything similar on Gulf Boulevard between 5th and 28th. It seems like a lost cause, and concerned people, some who are here in the audience said, Pete, you should be talking to the county, it's not the city's issue. They have a point, but I think any sort of change would start here. I think the initiative, the momentum would come here if there's some agreement to do something, and I know decisions have been made not to change any lanes or shorten any lanes on the boulevard. I'm not really talking about that, but perhaps in the future, if there will be resurfacing, but consider this. Recently, the city did a great job in painting the crosswalks, striped crosswalks up through from 5th to 28th. That looks great, telling pedestrians where to walk. In addition, at 5th by the cantina, it's either the county painted this beautiful bike lane. As you stop there at the intersection, there's a approved bike lane to cross. You can go right, left, or straight. It's painted in that bright green as a bike lane. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that, and I seen bikers waiting there to cross, but I was wondering, mistakenly, they may think that the bike lane continues into those lanes on the right, and they don't. As we all said, I've been told emphatically, it's not a bike lane. It's not a bike lane. Good, but perhaps some striping can be done in that gutter lane, or I'm not sure what to call it, that 3 foot or 3.5 foot. Again, I did my measurements, and the width varies. It's almost, some of it is almost close to a bike lane as you go up 28. Is that my 3-minute mark? Sorry. All right. I know there's a visioning workshop on October 1st. I plan to be there. I look forward to hear what they have said about bike safety and any changes to Gulf Boulevard. And since my time is up, for the record, I'd like to email Dean and Greg Mims 3 articles on bike safety and how bike lanes on roads actually are good for drivers as well, not just for bicyclists. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else who'd like to come up at this time on a separate item?
John Thayer, 1819 Bay Boulevard, and I'd like to thank Dean Sharman and the Public Works folks for chasing a crosswalk that wasn't working. The lights weren't working. They weren't working for about 3 months, and they chased the county and got that repaired. So I appreciate them dogging the county for that, and they agreed to do that. On the same subject, I think that we were pretty quick adopting all the suggestions that they made after the study on the bicycle stuff, the lanes, the striping, the crosswalks, where to put them, and everything else. The one on 21st, where I was having problems between 20th and 21st, I don't think I've ever seen anybody else use it except me, because nobody's going to walk between blocks. It's just not going to happen. It's a simple solution. Keep the medians, just don't use them for crosswalks, because they, in fact, are dangerous. With the full-grown palm trees are in each one, plus lights, they hide their body size. They hide people in the middle. Okay, you can't see people, and you step out for the next lane, and boom, somebody's charging through there, because they think the light's been blinking too long. The crosswalks need to be at intersections. I suggest moving the one at 20th and a half to 20th. 20th is one of the largest drain streets out of Indian Rocks, one of the longest streets in Indian Rocks. There's people crossing there all the time. Those crosswalks need to be in the open, and they need to be at intersections. If you don't think people won't walk 50 feet, go stand at 7th for a while and watch them there. They won't walk there, okay? At least if we get them right at the intersections, half the people will use them, and half divided by 0 is an infinite success. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else who'd like to come up?
Good evening, Steve Levine, lifelong Pinellas County resident, property owner and resident of Indian Rocks since 1984. 50 years ago, I came to Indian Rocks Beach and hung out at a place called Pueblo Village. I saw a sign there and said, IRB, world's safest beach. A few weeks back, I was out in the Gulf and looked at Indian Rocks Beach, and it looked like the world's most crowded beach. My family, my neighbors, and I oppose the approval of the proposed rezoning and reclassification
Excuse
of
me.
the property in question.
You can't, we will have that agenda item later, so
Okay.
you have to wait to talk about that. At this public comment right now, it's only about items that are not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda.
So if you
How
want
about VRBO? Can I make a comment about that?
You're welcome
No?
to, sir.
the VRBO, yes, you can.
Okay.
It's not on the agenda.
As a long-term resident, and having VRBO pop up all over our neighborhood, which is not meant to be a motel party zone, these things should have never been allowed. We know more development will bring more crowding, more development will decrease property values, more development will decrease the quality of life. Don't ruin Indian Rocks Beach forever. My neighbors and I can't get on Gulf Boulevard without risking getting wrecked by the overcrowded amount of people and cars that the current development has already brought. As a resident who cherishes this town and has sacrificed to live here, I want the over-commercialization of the town I love stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on any topic besides an agenda item? Please come forward.
Good evening, Earl Weston, 671 Garland Circle, Indian Rocks Beach. I am a member of the Action 2000 Visioning Committee and just wanted to clear up a few things. Number one of the main goals of the Visioning Committee is to preserve the character that we have here in Indian Rocks Beach. We would like to find solutions to preserve the cottages in Indian Rocks Beach. We also understand the supply and demand of existing land uses and what it can be used for and if it makes sense. And that's why we teamed up with Forward Pinellas and are paying for a study to determine whether the current designations and future land uses make sense as to what the demand for those uses are. Can we support more businesses? Do we have residential? Does mixed use make sense? So no, this is not an effort to foster growth in the city. It's an effort to foster smart growth in the city. It's an effort to foster smart redevelopment in the city. And that is the aim. And any other misconceptions, I would like to lay to rest at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Let's refrain from clapping. I appreciate that if you would do that for me tonight. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this time on an agenda, on something that is not an agenda item? If not, I am going to close the public comment, and I'm going to go to agenda item 3A, and we're going to have the report of our city attorney. Randy, do you have a report?
Briefly, Mayor and Commissioners and staff, thank you. It's always a pleasure to continue to serve this body and be available for your inquiries. That said, I want to let you know that the next 3 days I will have limited access because I'm doing the Leadership Florida program. And during the program days, as we learn about the resources and policies of the state, we have limited access. So if you need to reach me, please contact my partners, Jay, Danielle, or Erica. Otherwise, I have nothing else to report at this time.
Thank you, Randy. Does anyone have any questions for the city attorney at this time? Okay. I will look for 3B, agenda item, city manager Greg Mims. Would you like to give us a report?
Thank you. First, I would like to talk about the request from the Pinellas St. Coast Fire Rescue. I had the pleasure of meeting with the fire chief and the assistant chief about a month ago about a plan they have and a request they have to locate a vessel at the city docks next to the Holiday Inn. They've secured some money through the county to purchase the vessel. What I would ask, I think it's a win-win for the city, actually a win-win-win for the city, the fire department, and the public, is I would ask that you allow the city attorney and I to negotiate just a simple letter that lays out the terms and conditions of the arrangement. For example, if they're responsible for all the installations costs, all the maintenance costs, insurance, those kind of things. And if you're okay with that, then what we'll do, we'll simply put it back on as a consent agenda item at the next meeting. They're in the process of taking delivery of the boat. The area that we would put it in would be, if you're familiar with the docks, would be the northernmost slip on the outside of the dock. So I'm here, the assistant fire chief is here. If y'all have any questions, but I think this is a great thing for the community, and we both are available to answer any questions that you might have about it.
Does any member of the commission have any questions for Greg or for the assistant chief? Okay, and I think we're good with having Greg write a letter. Is everybody okay with that? We have a consensus?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anything else, Greg?
Yeah, I have a list.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good.
The Gulf Boulevard visiting session number 2 will be October the 1st from 5 to 7 p.m. Next month, as part of the regular agenda, we'll have a work session on to discuss fireworks within the city. This is a growing issue, and it's time that we have a discussion about the future of that. Also, we've had a number of concerned citizens and public inquiring about coyotes within the city. I've had extensive conversations with the Florida wildlife biologists and private individuals that are in the business of trapping and dealing with issues. So we're going to have an informational meeting on November the 12th from 5:30 to 6:30, and that'll be right before the regular November meeting. I would say a quick summary on part of this is that the coyote issue is here to stay. This is, I believe that some believe that you trap, you kill, and you eliminate the problem. That's not the way this creature works, and we just have to learn to deal with the circumstances surrounding coyotes. So that's going to be an informational session, and also there'll be a Florida Wildlife Commission biologist will be here to make a presentation and answer questions. And then there's a number of local residents that are involved in this topic. We have one resident in particular that's taken it upon herself to go door to door and provide information from the state and the county about coyotes and the do's and don'ts. And that's where we'll go from here. Is after the November meeting, it'll just be a continual thing that will provide information. Unfortunately, like a lot of other things in our city, there's volunteers that are willing to get out and talk to their neighbors and let them know what's going on. As you know, we responded and prepared and responded to the hurricane threat. We had the large sand pile out in front of City Hall that we purchased sand, and when that was going on, the hurricane was coming in around the weekend, and we had to make a decision to get sand before the weekend because we were not going to be able to get it because one forecast, there were so many different forecasts, but one forecast it was going to come up and go across the state, so we secured sand. That actually is less sand than we get out there in Irma. If you use the idea of how much sand we went through, so that sand will stay behind that fence for at least until the end of the month. And I've assured A2K that before Oktoberfest that we'll do something with it. I'm not sure we're going to have. We may have like a cat festival. I'm not sure, but we're going to do something. The last thing I want to do is just take just a minute, and if y'all will just give me a couple of more minutes. A lot of commission meetings, my report's very brief. I just believe this is very important to take a couple minutes and go over this. And Hetty's going to pull up a map, and I just want to bring to the commission's attention. We talked about this a couple of years ago, and I'll make that a little bigger, but it'll like go up. As we talked about, no, that's too big. Go back. That's good. We can just scroll up. I just want to bring your attention as we work through the process for Forward Pinellas and talk about Indian Rocks Beach and small town feel and what we like and what we don't like, and what we can do to keep that small town feel. I just want to make sure that everybody understands kind of what we're working with. And I'm going to point to the map, unfortunately, behind the commission because I can't point to anything else. The area, everything west of Gut Boulevard is all zone CT, which is commercial tourists. So everything that you see that's shaded in this color, except for the park, of course, is CT. Every piece of property that's on the west side of Gut Boulevard, if its properties are consolidated, or if a house is torn down, or if an existing condominium is torn down, they have the right on those parcels to build back at 46 feet. The other thing that I would mention is the areas that you see that's in this color brown. I don't know what the technical name of that color brown is. That color brown, which is the areas down south of the nature reserve, all the areas behind it, all the blocks that are the half blocks all the way up Gut Boulevard, the areas along Bay Boulevard. I actually live myself right in there. But any of these areas that you see that are brown, those are RM2 properties, and anything that's RM2 can be built at 46 feet. So I just wanted to, I need a big, there's obviously interest in building heights and working together to figure out the land code and amendments and the comprehensive plan and amendments, but in my discussions with the public the 6 years I've been here, I think most people don't understand that anything that's RM2 can be built at 46 feet. So as we talk about cottages and where cottages are, I just want to ask the commission and the public to keep that in mind, because that's legally what somebody can do today is build. The areas in yellow are the single family districts. Those are all capped at 35. So 35, 46, 30, the red parcels are commercial, and we have 4 or 5 blocks there, and the business district is commercial, and then commercial tourists. But I just wanted to put that out there, make sure that we all understand what the building height limits are in the city. And that's all I have. I'll answer your questions.
Do you have any questions for the city manager, Diane?
No.
Okay. Well then, with that, we will go to commissioners. Ed, do you have any comments for today?
Sure, thank you. In 1979, my grandparents retired here. The population of Florida was 9.5 million, and the population of the United States was 227 million. 4 years ago, the population of Florida was 18.8 million. That's almost doubled. And the population of the United States is 333 million. There's almost 100 million more people in the country over that time. So growth happens. It's an exogenous factor. It's not that we're encouraging growth. We're trying to plan for the growth that's going to happen. There's no way we're going to stop growing as a city. But what we can do is put frameworks, policies, and procedures in place to help encourage the kind of growth that'll keep our town maintaining its small town character. That does not mean it's going to be like it always was. In the 1930s, African Americans were not allowed on the beach. We've come a long way. So we don't want to go back. We want to move forwards. We want to develop and have growth and evolve. It's a nice thing to hear that we would like to establish historic zones and purchase development rights and encourage redevelopment and protection of historic structures. That's not done by our city, that's done by the county. We could declare a historic zone all we want, it has no impact. The single largest threat to the small town life in Indian Rocks Beach is not a townhome. It's the short-term rental epidemic which has run rampant throughout our residential neighborhoods and for which we as a municipality have no ability to act. We rely on our state officials, we lobby them, we rely on public participation to try to stop that. But we're not in a position to change or thwart the short-term rentals. So we're going to have a lot of discussions tonight about a few different feet on a project, and I welcome the dialogue from the public. Some of the comments which have been tossed around on the social media and even this evening about growth and development as a negative thing, I believe it should be understood. We're as a community trying to work together so that we can plan for the growth and development that's going to happen. That's what this is all about. We need public participation, and then we need to turn that into ordinances that can be implemented and enforced through our code enforcement division. So thank you for all the comments and emails that we received. I look forward to talking about them tonight. And please continue to be involved after this meeting because there's a lot to go on between now and the final recodification of the zoning rules and laws in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Commissioner Flagg?
Well, I'd like to expand on what Ed said and talk about the short-term rental situation we have in our residential neighborhoods. Unfortunately, more and more short-term rentals are infiltrating the residential areas that have always been zoned single-family and disturbing the quality of life for our residents. In these residential neighborhoods, families used to know one another, help one another, watch each other's children, and even establish neighborhood watches. That used to be the norm. Unfortunately, it's not becoming that any longer. I think that respecting the property rights of residential property owners should be protected and preserved. Our local municipality has to have the ability to regulate rentals to ensure a balance and quality of life for all that's concerned. We need to pursue a solution, and I know that in the past, our commission has sent letters to our state legislators. Also, our mayor, city manager have testified in Tallahassee about the ongoing issues that our small town is experiencing. I'd like to recommend once again that our city commission draft a letter with the assistance of our city attorney and our city manager to the governor and the Florida legislature, asking for the ability to control our short-term rentals, create some balance and realistic expectations that will benefit us all. And I'd like to see and ask the commission tonight if we are in agreement to proceed with such a letter, a drafting of this letter.
No problem with that, do you?
I think enough.
Okay. And to our legislators too?
Absolutely.
There's a consensus for that.
Consensus?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. The letter that Diane is mentioning is, we wrote a letter to Nick DeSaglia, who's here tonight, that we absolutely wanted him to abide by what we, as a commission, felt concerning the short-term rentals. And as he told you, he did do that. Bill?
Along with that same line that Diane was just speaking about, I think that is probably the biggest concern that we have is the short-term rental. It's not necessarily how many short-term rentals we have as much as it is how many people they're packing into the properties to make a dollar. Saw one the other day, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, sleeps 8. There's another home around the corner from us. There were 25 cars lined up outside. Some are parking in the yards. This is a very strong problem that we have. It's not going to go away. And I sat in this very seat for the last 4 years. So I see your head shaking your head no, but that's okay. Thank you for that. But I sat in this very chair the last 4 years, encouraging citizens to contact Tallahassee, not to lose the powers or controls that we have at this level. When Florida was created, the state decided that they would push down to this level the ability to come to meetings where the decisions were made at this level, not the state, not necessarily the county. And the whole reasoning behind that was simply to allow you, as you are tonight, to be able to come and talk face to face with those who represent you. And I wish we could get back to those days again. That's all I have.
Thank you, Phil. I'd like to tell you a few events that we have going on in case, since we have a large crowd and you might be interested. We have on Thursday the 12th from 6 to 7:30, the homeowners have their social hour at Guppy's. Our next commission meeting is a special commission meeting, which would be on the 17th of this month, and this is our second budget reading. If you have nothing better to do, on September 23rd at 5:45, I'm going to be on WTAN station talking about, on the Kelly Kelly show, talking about all the wonderful things we have in Indian Rocks Beach and our wonderful city. We have on the 28th of September from 4 to 10 p.m., we have the Homeowners Association has their pub crawl and their hippie fest. Again, I'd just like to mention to all of you our visioning workshop, which is October 1st from 5 to 7. Father John is having on October 6th the blessing of the animals at 3 p.m. at Calvary, and then he is going to have a position where there will be someone that will be speaking about the coyotes if you're interested in attending on the 6th of October, which is a Sunday. Every month, the first Monday of the month, I have conversations with the mayor here in the auditorium from 4 to 6:30, and that again will be October 7th. Every quarter, we have coffee with the Sheriff's Department, and we have it at Krabby Bill's. And it will be on October 8th from 7:30 a.m. to 9, and all are welcome. And we will also have our commission meeting that night at 7 p.m. And I also want to mention that Nick, who is not here tonight, he is listening to this meeting, and he is on the phone so that he can hear what's said tonight. And with that, we're going to go on to additions and deletions. Do we have any additions or and deletions tonight? Additions and deletions. And with that, agenda item number 5 is the consent agenda. Randy, please read the consent agenda by title only.
Happily, Mayor, one moment, please. Consent agenda items A through D. Item A, approval of the August 13, 2019 regular city commission meeting minutes. Item B, confirming action taken during the September 3, 2019 special city commission meeting. Item C, approval of the September 3, 2019 special city commission meeting minutes. Item D, authorizing the city manager to sign and approve a 1-year agreement for property casualty workers' compensation and flood insurance coverages with Public Risk Management of Florida for fiscal year 2019-20. This is a reading of all 4 items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda is read.
I'll second.
Second, that was Phil and Commissioner Flagg. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next is our agenda item 6, public hearing. This is ordinance number 2019-05, 2501 Goff Boulevard. Randy, would you please read this ordinance?
Happily, Mayor. City of Indian Rocks Beach, ordinance number 2019-05. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Indian Rocks Beach to rezone and reclassify lands owned by BC Indian Rocks LLC at 2501 Gulf Boulevard in the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Pinellas County, Florida, legally described as lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, less the west 10 feet, together with lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, block 8, re-revised map of Indian Beach, together with a 10-foot vacated alley line west of and adjacent to said lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and lots 1 and 2, block 40, re-revised map of Indian Beach, together with the west half of vacated alley lying east of and adjacent to said lots in lot 9, block 40, re-revised map of Indian Beach, together with the east half of vacated alley lying west of and adjacent to said lot, and lot 10, block 40, re-revised map of Indian Beach, together with the east half of vacated alley lying west of and adjacent to said lot from its present zoning classifications of business B and medium density residential RM2 to a planned unit development, providing for approval of a corresponding planned unit development agreement and providing for an effective date. This has been a second and final reading of ordinance number 2019-05 by title only. As we proceed on this ordinance, Mayor, we are considering a quasi-judicial matter in the form of this rezoning. In a quasi-judicial matter, it is important that I remind you that we are, you are not creating law. You are not in a legislative session. You are not creating policy. You are applying the law to establish facts and criteria as set forth in your code and based on competent, substantial evidence and testimony presented to you this evening and otherwise in the record. Before we begin, it is imperative that I ask, has any member of this body, had any ex parte communications with the applicant?
No.
Let the record reflect all have responded in the negative. Has anybody conducted a site visit for the limited purpose of evaluating this property, meaning not you drive by it and you are tangentially aware of it, but rather you visited the property for this purpose?
No.
Let record reflect all have responded in the negative. With that, will anybody who intends to provide testimony before this body tonight, i.e., if you plan to speak, please rise and raise your right hand, including city staff.
Excuse me, let us all be respectful of each other tonight as we all have an opportunity to speak before this board. Thank you.
Do you, all of those of you standing with your hands raised, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are going to give before this body is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. With that, we will now proceed with the quasi-judicial hearing, the first element of which is staff presentation.
Eddie?
Thank you. First of all, we're just going to, do a recap from last week's presentation and some of the updates that have been presented by the applicant. First of all, the property is zoned business along Gulf Boulevard and the RM2 along First Street, which, as present zoning, would allow for 34 units on this property. The applicant is proposing 32 units. Now let me just remind everyone that if they didn't ask for the PUD, they could come in and get 34 units on a staff level review. So, and the one thing here is that the building heights in the business district are 35 feet and the RM2 is 46 feet. What the applicant here is doing is applying for a PUD for a few different reasons. What they want to do is pull the buildings back from Gulf Boulevard and put the pool in the amenity area in the front yard. That would require a variance along with the accessory structures. Right now, the buildings are set back at 50 feet from their property line, and that's with the additional, when they originally dedicated the alleyway about 10, 12 years ago, they gave the land to the right-of-way along Gulf Boulevard. So their lot line already sits 10 feet back from the existing sidewalk, which makes it about 60 feet from the sidewalk for the setback of these buildings. Also, they're looking at the parking, variation from the parking. What our code calls for 3-bedroom units is 3 spaces, and they are not allowed to park behind each other. What they're proposing is 2 cars underneath the buildings and then 1 in the driveway. And the fourth request is for building heights, that all of the buildings be building height of 42 feet. That is varying from the first half of the property, which would be 35 feet, and the rear would actually allow for 46 feet. And let me go back to this one, sorry. Also, after the last meeting, the city commission asked for requests from the applicant that they provide sidewalks along 25th Avenue, which they did all the way from Gulf Boulevard down to First Street on both sides of 25th and the one side of 26th, and they worked around the large tree. They're also going to be providing a bike rack next to the transit stop, and that's in their PUD agreement. The other concern was the noise against 18 on the Rocks. They have proposed to do 2x6 framing on the outside walls with an R19 insulation, and there is a spec in your package which would help the insulation and the soundproofing of the units next to 18 on the Rocks. And that's also written in their PUD agreement. And the last one was talking about different various building colors. This was the original one that was submitted, more of a tan and blue sand. This one it's a little lighter, off-white with the gray. And this one is a little variation on the green-gray tones with the lighter tones that accent it. Those are some different options that they're proposing right now. There's 2 slides at the end here that I'd like to show everyone that the applicant prepared. This one shows what the building would be like from 25 feet back from their property line. It would be located where the dotted line are. They're proposing 50 feet on this, which shows very large setback. And this last slide shows what it's like to stand on the sidewalk and look at the buildings. On the left, you've got the setback of 50 feet from the property line, which is a much different impact than standing next to the building that is 25 feet from the property line. This one just to show that different appearance of what it's like when the building's right up on the property line versus being set back. And with that, that's the recap and updates from last meeting.
Ed?
I do have a question. Back to the calculation of the height. In the engineering diagrams, the height is labeled as 39 feet, and you're talking about 42 feet. What is the additional?
They're requesting that, just the only reason I think is right now is that we haven't gone through the whole engineering design with SwiftMud, and we want to make sure that they agree on all the drainage. That could actually require some fill a lot, so you could get your drainage to work and the ponds to work.
That would be fill that would be 3 feet of land above the crown of Gulf Boulevard. Is that what you're saying?
It would be fill on the lot itself, but I don't think they're going to need that.
To get to zero,
Yeah.
the 42 gets tossed around, and it's been a highly sensitive subject. So I'm really wondering if it's 42 feet. That means we've put 3 foot of landfill, and that 3 foot would be over the crown of Gulf Boulevard.
No.
Where is zero at?
Okay, zero is the crown of the road.
Which road? Gulf Boulevard.
Well, that's the thing, there's all different sides, so you have to measure, probably take
The
an
highest
average.
of the highest of those.
I don't have that exactly, which one is the highest.
I'm asking it would be the highest of those 3.
Or an average of them. We haven't really, got into that totally.
Yeah. It just gets into, so 42 foot is not so that the building can necessarily measure to 42. And again, we talk about 42 and it only goes to the middle of the roof, but let's save that for the public comment. But the building itself is 39 feet.
Right.
And the building in the current code would be 35 feet without any change on the front lots.
On the front lots, right.
So we're talking about 4 feet of building height increase. And then some additional subjectivity based upon the drainage requirements of SwiftMud, is that?
That's pretty much right, and it wouldn't be 3 feet of fill, but it was just something they used to begin with. We've already done preliminary review of the engineering on the local, consultant level, and it seems to be working, but we want to make sure that's what
Yeah, now, because I've seen when we do the fill before, that the fill is done to raise the pad to be as high as the top part of the street, the crown of the street. I've never seen, but that doesn't mean anything, but I've never seen the fill have to be 3 feet above that.
No, it shouldn't.
That's right, okay. So it's a 4 additional foot increase on the front lots, and on the back lots, we're going down
4 feet.
4 feet. Okay, thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions at this time for Eddie?
I just have one question. The color palettes that you mentioned are pretty distorted on here. Do we have any color palettes that we can see?
She'll show it to you
Okay.
when they do their presentation.
Very good, thank you.
Ed, you can.
I'm sorry, just to go back to the height again. Would it be, these are all 2 stories over parking.
Exactly.
So when we get to the point of discussing the actual agreement itself, I would like to insist that there's a provision that describes it as not being able to exceed 2 stories over parking. My concern is that if we do approve a 42-foot number, then there could open up some slight potential, if not, like say this development falls through, we come back again, they say, oh, now all of a sudden we're looking at 3 stories over parking. I'd like to squelch that once and for all, if possible, to make sure that not only is it 42 feet, but that it's also limited to 2 stories over parking.
I mean, right now, on most of the buildings, it's pretty hard. I mean, you wouldn't get more than that. I mean, especially if you want 9-foot ceilings, with the space, and to get it above the floodplain level, and this is what we've been dealing with. with a lot of the single families.
Yeah,
And they have to go with 8-foot ceilings and squish everything down.
and 7-foot carports, I know,
Yeah.
I walked up and down the beach looking at buildings and understood some of the decisions that were made in the past. But if there's just a way to make sure that, even though we're talking about this little bit of wiggle room, that's what I'm gonna say loosely, I don't really like that word, but I know where you're getting the additional measurement from in terms of being safe for the drainage. I'd like to make sure that doesn't accidentally open up some other risk. Unless you guys have an objection to that.
Diane, anything else at this time? Phil, do you have anything at this time?
So is there a consensus for that?
Yes. There are not any more questions for Hetty. I'm going to ask the applicant, Ms. Crespo, to come forward from Taylor Morrison.
Thank you. Alexis Crespo with Waldrop Engineering representing the applicant. The team is back here with me tonight. Travis and Craig from Taylor Morrison, as well as Brian Jackson, who's the project engineer. We're glad to be back tonight with the updates that your staff has gone through. And we just want to, again, thank staff for working with us through this process. Just to hit on a couple of key points. Today, this project is approved for 34 townhome units. We are coming in with a lesser number than could be developed, so the 32 units being requested today. Hetty has hit on the height, and there's been good discussion on that. We are asking for what is, in our opinion, is a slight increase to what is permitted in the business district. Again, about 4 feet of additional height. Those buildings will be set back 60 feet off Gulf Boulevard, whereas they could be 25 feet off the road in exchange for that 4 feet. And then on top of that, we're going to make sure the buildings that front on First are going to be several feet below what could be built today by right. So when you take the setback, the fact that we're reducing the buildings on First Street, we think that is a very fair compromise and will uphold what we agree is the small town character of Indian Rocks Beach, which we're trying to certainly uphold through this project. In terms of Taylor Morrison, they are a developer in town. They've done the Cove project. You have the opportunity to work with a developer here that has demonstrated deed restrictions attached to another project that limit rental timeframes. They did set that up with a 6-month minimum rental time frame, 2 times per year. Certainly, condo associations can come back and amend those. Property owners typically want to keep those enforced, though, in areas with deed restrictions. So this is a PUD with a binding PUD agreement with all the commitments we're proposing here, and it will also have a homeowners association and deed restriction and covenants that run with the property. So I saw emails about condo or PUD. It really is going to have both of those provisions running with the project in terms of a local PUD agreement and recorded deed restrictions. Hetty touched on the height. We've provided the additional insulation, the hurricane impact windows, which are going to go a long way with that. And we've also done additional plantings, mid-story canopy trees, so that it's going to be very densely vegetated in addition to the wall, and we put that directly into the PUD agreement before you tonight. Transit shelter will be exactly the same as the other ones constructed throughout the town, again, upholding that small town feel with the bike rack provision as well. And then we were going to talk about the color palettes, if I could show those to you. And to be clear, Taylor Morrison is comfortable with all 3 options. There was the desire to potentially differentiate this project from the Cove, which a lot of the colors in City Hall are yellow and blue, which is what the Cove is. So we do feel like that is coastal, but if it was the pleasure of the commission, we have a lighter palette included here with more of the off-white beigey tone, or what I'm calling the driftwood option, which is more of the coastal grays, depending on the preference of the commission. So again, we could be happy with all 3. These are tested with their markets and potential buyers. So they're very much looking to have a coastal feel with his communities. That's what people are coming to this market to obtain. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, and certainly we just look forward to hearing public comment and working through those issues this evening.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for?
So it's pretty evident, I don't see a big box look to these. These look more Key West kind of style. Correct? Okay.
Correct. And there's undulation in the buildings where they go in and out with the peaks of the roofs and the different textures to have that look.
I was gonna say something about the facade and the colors. I was thinking more on this kind of these colors, but I don't see where, is that one of them?
That is option A, that, this is the, so it, unfortunately from this view, you cannot tell, but you've got the lighter blue.
Okay.
Is that first floor parking. So that would be
That is that
option,
one, so,
that would be
okay.
option one,
That's
yes.
a little different. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I'm gonna have you be seated at this time, Ms. Crespo. And we are going to open up the public comment at this time. Anyone wishing to speak, I would like you to come forward and state your name and address, and clearly for the record. You will have 3 minutes, and I would like you to all be respectful of each other if you would. Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Adani, 2405 Gulf Boulevard. I'm one of the owners of 18 on the Rocks, and I just wanted to say that I really don't have any objection to the development. As long as we can cooperate. I'm mostly concerned about the aesthetics. Living on the beach, I do think that it's important to maintain the vibe of Indian Rocks Beach and the colors, and for sure the trees and the shrubs. I know that they're considering a wall between our restaurant and the condos. I really kind of object to that, but if it must be done, I would like to have shrubs and trees planted on our side, because right now our view is greenery and trees and grass, and if it's just going to be a wall and they place the stuff on their side, we're going to be left looking at cement, and I think that would take away from the aesthetics of our restaurant. So if we could consider that, that'd be great. Also, as far as parking, I don't know where the excess parking's gonna be. Our customers, if we have our parking lot full, will park on First, kind of behind the restaurant, which would then be kind of behind their condos. You know, as long as we can cooperate maybe and come to some kind of agreement so all our parking's not taken away. That's really pretty much my only concerns were the wall, because I don't want to have to look at that and our customers sitting outside. And I also would like to ask if when they do the condos, if they would be careful with the weed killers and things like that, and not have anything that's going to destroy the animals and the birds and the bees and the butterflies and all that, if they could use natural stuff. That's pretty much it.
Thank you,
Okay,
Nancy.
thanks.
Hi, Kelly Sistrick, 448 Harbor Drive South. My concerns are both with the parking and the height. This development does not have a hardship based on height. They can build 3-bedroom units with or without a height increase. And I would really like to know if this roof line, if with this line, a loft could potentially be added in on these units, either by the developer during the building process or afterwards by future owners. If the commission grants a PUD status tonight, the development can undergo minor modification with just staff approval afterwards. It won't come back to the commission. And I don't think the commission has asked for any interior floor plans for this complex yet. And why don't you get those? There was only a half-page interior drawing provided by the developer in the application packet, and it had no detail to identify what the rooms are, the room sizes, or identify the load-bearing walls. This is the little half-page diagram that showed the interior. There just wasn't any detail there. If I were a developer doing this project, I'd minimize my ceiling heights and use the extra height you are granting to design a loft area in each unit. A loft can be used as an office or as an extra sleeping area for guests. A loft, if it lacks either a closet or a window, can't technically be called a bedroom, but it can be used as an extra bedroom after it's sold. That's a great way for a developer to get these units from the mid 500,000 range to the mid 600,000 range, as they've mentioned. It also makes the property very attractive to rent out short term because the owner can potentially advertise 3 bedrooms plus an extra loft that sleeps 2, or maybe even 4, depending on its size. As I mentioned at the first hearing on this PUD, I would be very concerned about the parking situation and how much pressure that will put on the neighbors. I thought about that over Labor Day weekend because of a Clearwater shooting that made the news. That was at a short-term rental on Grove Street downtown. And there was a short stay guest that shot a full-time resident in the other half of the duplex. There was a shared driveway. There was a dispute over who had the right to park in the driveway. A 31-year-old man named Derek Omasta was killed. I think there could be some very serious consequences of allowing this project to go forward with no parking modifications and with the 42-foot height. I don't think you've done enough homework on this project yet, and I would ask you to vote down this project until you can get both interior drawings and the deed restrictions and the HOA docs that the developer intends to use. I think that's the only way to protect the public on this project. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come at this time to speak?
Ann Todia, 919 Harbor House Drive. I've lived in Indian Rocks Beach for almost 20 years. As I stated, I live in Harbor House Drive townhouses off 9th. If you look at the drawings, you will see a lot of similarities. We have 30 units. We are a PUD, not a condo association. We work hard to have a uniform look and well-maintained properties. Our buildings are set back from golf. We have hedges that surround our area. Many of you may not even realize what's behind the hedge. We have a setback area that's landscaped, grassy, with plenty of plantings and many palm trees. We own our own street. We maintain our street. We have plenty of owner parking. Parking has never been an issue. We don't have a lot of rentals, and we all work together when the seasonal people are gone so that there's adequate parking. We've just not experienced problems with that issue. I'm here to let the commission know that I support this project. It seems to me that in small towns, it's easy for rumors and misinformation to spread. As supervisors, managers, and commissioners, you hear from the public repeatedly, more often those who are dissatisfied or unhappy. I want to be a voice of support. I'm here to say publicly how satisfied and happy I am with the hard work of both the city manager, his staff, and the commission. I believe you all work for the good of Indian Rocks Beach now and the future. You are forward-thinking in your action, yet you remain cognizant of the desire of the citizenry to keep our small beach community feel. I'm saddened to hear of a trend by some in IRB, those dissatisfied and unhappy with the Commission's action, using social situations, social gatherings, and social media to embellish information, overstate, understate details, and twist facts, stirring up skepticism and distrust among residents who hear and read these distorted ideas. Commissioners, you hear from unhappy folks too often. Now hear from me, a happy, satisfied resident. I offer my complete support and trust. I don't believe any of you would intentionally do anything that wasn't good for Indian Rocks Beach, including the approval of this development. In offering my support, I'll be off worrying about other things, leaving the running of this awesome city in your capable hands. Thank you for all you do. I love living here.
Hey.
Sir, were you sworn when you arrived?
I was.
Okay, thank you.
I just stepped a little late. So I want to thank all you guys for what you do running our city. You're doing a really good job. I appreciate the.
Could you please state your name and address for the record? I'm
Rod
sorry to
Baker,
interrupt you.
364 Bahia Vista.
Thank you.
So, in my opinion, it's not so much the height or the number of units, it's the fact that we're giving up our mixed-use zoning. Because mixed-use zoning, that's where you get your coffee shops, right? And your bakeries and your flower shops and all the cool things that everybody gets to go use, not just, and I think that the city kind of protected along Gulf Drive in certain areas because they wanted to maintain that future of Indian Rocks Beach where you'd have more places to go and as we grew. So when you give it up, we're giving it up kind of forever. So I understand why it's good for the property owner. It's a hard place to sell, but when they invested in it, it was mixed, had its zoning then. And I understand that if you change the zoning and allow this to go in, that they will have an opportunity to move the property, sell the property, probably get more for it. And I understand why it's good for the developer, but he's going to come and go. I don't think he lives here. So, they speculate and want to make a profit. That's good. But I don't understand how it's good for the citizens of Indian Rocks Beach who kind of have a stakehold in the fact that it's mixed-use zoning. And when the kids come back from college and we try to talk them into living here, it's going to be easier if there's a cool, alcohol-free restaurant bar like they have all over down the beach they have to drive to now. And if we have a flower shop or even a bank, it's off the island. And so that's my opinion, is that it's not the height, and it's just that once we give away this mixed-use zoning, I think we've lost something for the citizens. So my question for y'all is why? Why are we doing it? What's the hurry? Why? How is this good for the citizenry of Indian Rocks Beach? I understand how it's good for the owner of the property and the developer, but I don't understand how maybe I just don't see it yet, because I don't think it's about the property taxes, because I ran the numbers and it's negligible in comparison to the city's budget. I don't think we're having budget constraints, so help me understand why we're even doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Lori Boland, 109 Haven Beach Drive. I'm here tonight to lend my support for the proposed Taylor Morrison development at 2501 Gulf Boulevard. My husband Todd and I live at the Cove, the Taylor Morrison development built in 2014 at the corner of 7th and Gulf. We moved into 109 Haven Beach Drive in February of 2017. Prior to that, we rented a condominium in the Scapello building at 22nd and Gulf. Our experience as residents of the Cove has been nothing short of fantastic. It is an aesthetically beautiful community. It is a well-maintained community. It is a well-built community. It is a safe and secure community. And the floor plans and amenities were exactly what we needed. But most importantly, what makes the Cove such a great place to live are the Cove residents. The residents of the Cove have exceptional pride of ownership in their homes, and it shows in the consistently well-maintained look and feel of the community. The residents of the Cove are a caring group, genuinely interested in the well-being of their fellow Cove and IRB neighbors. The residents of the Cove, above all, are a participatory group. From the almost standing room only attendance of a Cove HOA meeting, to the resident organized Cove cleanup days and social events,
to their participation in the greater IRB community, including the Homeowners Association, the library, Action 2000, beach cleanup days, and other local IRB events, you would be hard-pressed to find a more committed group of residents who believe in helping IRB become one of the greatest beach communities in the area. The Taylor Morrison proposed development fills a void in the housing options here in IRB. If you don't want a multi-million-dollar beach home or a multi-million-dollar beach cottage, or you can't afford one, and you want new construction, and you want maintenance-free, lock-and-leave living, what are your options here in IRB? For us, and many, many others like us, a development like the Cove filled that need. And if those who would purchase homes in the proposed development are anything like those who were attracted to the benefits and lifestyle of the Cove, we should be proud to have them join our beloved community of IRB. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna.
Good evening. My name is Bill Tuffle. I've been a resident here for 42 years, and I also am a real estate broker since 1972. I have seen a large amount of growth in Indian Rocks Beach over this time span. Right now, the amount of time I've been here is probably commensurate with the growth that I have seen. I have spent several hours with Commissioner Cookie Kennedy going over the plans for this development, 32-unit development. I am against it. I am totally against the proposal. I believe that ideally that being a green space would be much more attractive. It would increase the property values, and it would make the IRB people a lot happier than seeing condos, more condos. I've seen, believe the city has the money to do this. That's what I believe anyway. And, but I would also like an opportunity to have some of my counterparts perhaps find some people that would be willing to equity share in the property, 4 or 5 people, and then co-ownership of this exclusively for a green area project, not for condos. And I would ask that the assembly group consider that, please. I've been in Florida since 1966, and as a testimony for development, I encourage everybody to take a little ride from Clearwater Beach all the way down to Paso Grill, which encompasses Reddington Beach, Sand Key, and everything. All of this coast in 66, I know there's growth that's going to happen, but the whole beach was beautiful, absolutely quaint and beautiful. It's not like that anymore. It's been overdeveloped, and it's a mess, and I think it's been ruined. I think that Indian Rocks Beach is the last holdout. It's the reason I bought here. I'm sure most people have. You come here and it's very quaint, very nice. It's a super beach, and we're basically the only one left. And I don't want to see it ruined. I think that this development is a bad, bad idea, and I oppose it. I thank Cookie for spending the time with me. I think Cookie, she was born and raised here, and I have a lot of trust in her that she will work with the rest of the committee to make sure that everything is done in the best interest of Indian Rocks Beach. It's really kind of, I think we're in a pretty tight spot here. We're really should be looking at what we have left and preserve it and take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up and speak? Please come up to this
House 2104 Beach Trail. I live in one of the last cottages left on the beach, built in 1948. It's been in the family for 60 years. Okay, so we've been around, all right? This is not a bad idea. DOT grades every road in the county. I don't know if y'all know that or not, but from 5th up has one grade, from 5th down has a different grade. 5th down is an F. It's a horrible road. North of 5th, it's about to go bad. This is caused by trips per day. I haven't heard that discussion. I mentioned it last time. I still haven't heard that. The least impact on Gulf Boulevard, and every one of us drives on Gulf Boulevard. The only person that, if Cookie wasn't mayor, she wouldn't have to drive on Gulf Boulevard, okay, because she could live and get in and out. But she drives on Gulf. We all drive on Gulf Boulevard. It gets pretty bad. Trips per day is the main thing that I look at when we look at something like that. The impact on Gulf Boulevard. This has the least impact on Gulf Boulevard of any project that this developer could do. They have property rights. They can do what they want to do. They can sell it to somebody who wants to turn it into green space, and that would be no impact on Gulf Boulevard, no impact on property taxes either. But this is a good project, very little impact on Gulf Boulevard, minimal impact on Gulf Boulevard. What they could do, mixed use, bottom half being business, we would probably have 10 times the traffic coming out of the one particular lot. That's the fact. I haven't heard that. No one's come up with anything about the impact on Gulf Boulevard. Does anybody think Gulf Boulevard is not busy? I mean, I don't know. I mean, and it's loud too, but you know, if someone that has one of the last few remaining cottages, I don't think this is a bad idea. Thank you.
My name is Bill Snyder. I live on 18th Avenue. My objection is the height restriction. I don't think we should give anybody another inch. Because what's going to happen next year when the next contractor wants to come in and build another place at 52 feet? We need to stand our ground and leave things the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Back again, John Fansfield, 448 Harbor Drive South. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like a few comments might have been addressed to me in my Nextdoor posts. There's not a single post I made on Nextdoor that was inaccurate or distorted. People can reply to it. And if we found anything was inaccurate or distorted, we'd see it. There were none. However, tonight, there's been a bunch of apples to oranges comparison. We heard about building 25 feet from the road, I think you said.
Speak to this commission, please.
Good. That's not true. We heard about 39 feet structural height versus the 42 feet, which is the code, to the crown of the road. That's apples to oranges. It's confusing people. We heard that development is inevitable. All you have to do is look across the country to these wonderful places you can go visit, and they limited development. They didn't allow changes in height and other changes in zoning. I hope IRB does work towards historic zones and in many other things like St. Petersburg's and other places have done. I'll bet you're all going to vote yes on this, but I'll make my comments brief. It's a terrible precedent. It's one of the first uses of your new PUD ordinance, and you're already increasing building heights along with other zoning giveaways. In the Nextdoor poll of IRB residents last month, I asked, do you want building heights to be increased on Gulf Boulevard? 96% said no. 96%. Have you ever heard of a poll like that? 3, and the additional building height is not necessary. There is no hardship. It only gives them taller ceilings. And 4, this PUD is for big box buildings, but there is no parking for all their guests. People will be visiting for weekends at the beach, dinner parties, family get-togethers, family reunions. There's no parking on adjoining streets, so visitors and guests will be parking in beach accesses and parking all around in the surrounding neighborhoods overnight, for weekends, or for longer. Granting this PUD tonight sends a clear signal to other developers that when it comes to increasing building heights, IRB is open for business. I urge you to vote now. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Don Bishop, 1907 Bay Boulevard. I am a native. I was born about 70 miles from here, back when Truman was president. And I've seen a tremendous, I know. I've seen a tremendous amount of growth. You know, Ed was talking about 9 million. You know, when I graduated college, there was 1.6 million. And I had to leave the state to get a job. You know, while I was gone, I lived in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, not a great place, New York City. I've moved all over the country. I came back here, I've been living in Indian Rocks Beach since 2007. I've seen some very serious growth in the city. Before we bought here, my wife and I at the time, we went from Crystal Beach down to West Palm Beach and from Naples all the way up to Cedar Key looking for a beach place. And we picked this place because it's unique. And you know, I've seen on social media they talk about a Great Wall and about all the tall buildings and everything. You don't, when you drive, like someone mentioned, from one end of the beach to the other, you really don't see tall buildings in Indian Rocks Beach. That's because of you, because of the city council, because you've helped maintain the small town feel. I support the proposed building. I appreciate the builder's efforts with the setback, which I think is fantastic. The landscaping, which is phenomenal. And the amount of green space up there is just, when the first time I saw the plan, that was the one thing that struck me. There was so much green space. And I think this is the best use of the land now in this area of growth. And I think the commission has done a very good job of controlling the growth. Growth is going to happen. We can't stop that. But I think the commission has done a very good job of controlling the growth. And I want to applaud the commission for their calm, professional demeanor against what I consider, this is an editorial, what I consider to be a BS assault on social media. I think you've handled it very, very well. I think there's been some outlandish charges, and I thank all of you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Robert Pergolizzi. Hi. I live at 2618 Gulf Boulevard, number 503 in Driftwood Sands. I received one of these notices in the mail because I live within 150 feet of this property. So I am directly impacted by what happens here. And I'm here to say that I fully support this project and what's going here. Despite a rumor about the PUD being an effort to circumvent the zoning ordinances, it's not that. The PUD is a tool that allows you to actually exert more control over the development. So what we have here is an increase in height with an extraordinary increase in setback. I think it's a, depending on what number you use, either 4 or 7 foot increase in height in the B district for an extra 25 feet off of Gulf Boulevard. So when you're driving down Gulf Boulevard, that angle would be lower rather than what the code would allow. That's high school trigonometry, but that's the mathematical fact. So the increase in height is more than mitigated by the extra setback of from 25 feet to 50 feet. And in exchange for this trade-off that we have in the PUD, you're getting more green space, you're getting sidewalk where you normally wouldn't get sidewalk, you're getting a transit shelter where I don't think anybody would be required to put a transit shelter in, and we're even getting to choose the color of the buildings, which I think is a great thing for you to be able to do. I support the development of this beautifully located property that right now is kind of a blemish on Gulf Boulevard. When I walk from Driftwood Sands to 18 on the Rocks to get a blue cheeseburger, I walk right by on this sidewalk. And I just shake my head saying that something good has to happen here, and I think this is the right project. It's a good plan. I believe it'll be an asset to the area and increase our property values. I applaud Hetty and the city manager for working with the applicant and the applicant for making the changes y'all requested. And I would urge you to reaffirm last month's vote for approval with another vote for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, David.
Good evening. David Ardman, 351 La Hacienda Drive. I'm more of a contemporary. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was president when I was has done a terrific job. I agree with Mr. House and the gentleman that just spoke that this is a good use of the land. I think that the developer has offered some good concessions, and I applaud all your work.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up and speak at this time? Please come forward.
Good evening, my name is Eric Meyer, I live at 2316 Gulf Boulevard. I stand here in support of this project. I think it's a great idea. It's designed well, it's set back well. And I want to stand on Ann Todia's, all her comments. I don't want to repeat them all again, but she did a great job. She did, I'm going to with her, all her verbal was great. So I'm going to use that. Thank you and have a great day.
Laura Lindsay, 432 18th Avenue. Hi. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and I've been coming here since I was 3 years old. Worked my whole life to buy a house here, and so now I have that. It is becoming somewhat unrecognizable. I think it was very helpful in the beginning when the gentleman pointed out that the area west of Gulf Boulevard is already allowed to be at a 46-foot height, and that the other areas of this part that are residential are already permitted to be 46 feet high. I think it's helpful to people who are considering things to consider that those 46 feet, those checks are all out there. So when we look at the landscape, we don't always realize that all of that could be 46 feet high. Currently it's not. But at some point, presumably it will be. So we see that as things are knocked down or remodeled, that they are going ahead and going full into where that permission is. And certainly once permission is given, then it continues to say, hey, well, it's like that way across the street. Why can't it be like that here? And that's how it continues to grow and grow. I agree that growth is inevitable. The population is growing and more people are moving to Florida. We do need places to accommodate them. I appreciate that this is a planned development, and so there will be some rules, certainly initially, that will come with it, that will address some of the concerns that, that the residents have already with existing arrangements that are here already. I think planning further for the population and speaking to the traffic on Gulf Boulevard, et cetera, that there will come a time, or this is a time, that we are planning as a community to do less with cars and maybe look into some of the arrangements like the community easy bike rental type things. To me, that's really what limits the mixed usage that I would really like to see at this property. I would really like to see shops in the bottom. I would like to see an open air market. I would like to see a produce market, a walk-up place where people can come up and get things, a coffee shop, and people live on top. The problem would be, where are their cars going to go? So I think as the parking continues to be an issue and we see the community growing, we need to start thinking about alternative methods of transportation. We ride bikes a lot, our guests, we have bikes for our guests, and that's what we do. Most people love to come to our community, park their car, ride a bike the whole time they're here. Not everybody knows how to access one. So I think that's something that we probably want to look into moving forward. As far as this particular project, my only concern with it is where the guests going to park and an architectural review to be more consistent with the beach style, as this looks rather urban to me.
Thank you, Lori. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward? Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Hugh Burton, 1102 Beach Trail. Since some people were referring to their age,
This is not a legal requirement.
oh, well then I'm 20 now. In 1959, my mother and father dragged my brother and I down here to spend our life. We lived off 18th Avenue. And as a kid, I got to tell you, it was pretty awesome. dive off the dock, walk to the beach, get sunburned every day. It doesn't get any better than that. Fast forward this many years, things have changed. I would agree with Commissioner Hoofnagel about growth. There's no question we've got a lot more people in this country, and I think sometimes most of them have come to Indian Rocks Beach. That being said, I'm sure, since I just completed building a house, I'm sure with the guidance of the city and the commission and a great developer, I'm sure the development would look pretty awesome, but I can't support it. You know, there's an old expression, you're putting 10 pounds of, well, I guess I can't say that tonight, but you're putting 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag. I know we can't stop growth, and I'm not for stopping growth, but I do think there are other things that we can be doing. As a couple of my neighbors mentioned earlier, once we've changed this zoning, it's gone forever. There's not much green space left on Indian Rocks Beach. One of the reasons I came back here, I could have gone to Clearwater Beach, St. Pete Beach, any number of beaches, Fort Lauderdale, anywhere. Came back here because it was a small town feel. Once we give that away, it's gone. I would be a big proponent of what, again, one of my neighbors said, anybody else want to join in and buy this property and turn it into a garden, a dog park, something. But I just don't think we need to invite more residences for all the problems that I see coming down the road. So I can't support the project, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to come up and speak at this time?
Good evening, Julie Puffnagel, 2 Fifth Avenue. My husband and I live in a small cottage that was built in 1919 and we love it. There has been a trend for over 20 years, people working at keeping Indian Rocks Beach a small town community, and that work continues through the upcoming vision sessions. In fact, one of the organizations in Town Action 2000 got started through vision sessions, and just because we're having vision sessions doesn't mean we're going to be building big buildings that don't belong here. We really care about our small town and keeping it small town, and then also smart growth, as Earl Weston said, and we want to keep Indian Rocks Beach small and beautiful. And I actually think that I support this project. I think that they've done a lot to pull the buildings back from Gulf Boulevard 60 feet. They're giving up the 46 on the back at 442 and the 35 to the 42 on the front. I think overall this is going to fit very well with the community. I think it's subjective. If you look at it, I like it. There are other people who look at it, maybe they don't like it, but I think it's beautiful. I've seen the Cove, I see how wonderful that is, and I actually also think that this is going to help businesses in the areas, having people there going out. It's going to help this commercial node uptown and having those residents going out and using businesses in the area, and I give my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Anyone else? Please come forward.
Earl Weston, 671 Garland Circle. First of all, let's look at the potential impacts if we left the zoning as it is and built it out. You could have 35-foot commercial development in the business section. Theoretically, that could be a 2-story bar restaurant with parking underneath. Look at the impacts that would have to the neighborhood, to Gulf Boulevard, to the surrounding community. And then you could have probably 15 units behind it. In 1986, the state of Florida passed the Growth Management Act, and in that it created planned developments. And the idea of a planned development was to enable a property owner and a jurisdiction to work together collaboratively to come up with the best possible use for property that would be in keeping with the surrounding. And I think this is a very good idea for that property. But a couple caveats. I have had the good fortune, I guess you could call it, to have been involved in a number of planned developments in my career, both as a developer and as a representative of a large grocery retailer. We have had issues with planned developments that didn't have exhibits. And I would strongly urge the commission to adopt in the ordinance site plan, elevations, color palette, possibly even, I don't know if it's legal or not, to make a deed restriction that there are rental limitations. I know that I've been involved in some development agreements that were pretty strict. And we had to not only provide parking, driveways, signage, elevations, landscaping as part of our zoning. And so I think just protect the integrity of the project to assuage some of the people who are opposed to it, thinking it could change. I would strongly urge the commission to take some of these exhibits that are provided and incorporate them into your zoning ordinance. So I wholeheartedly support the project, and I urge you to vote for it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak tonight before we close the public hearing?
Because we have so many people here who may not typically come, this is that moment that you see in the movies, speak now or forever hold your peace. If you have not yet spoken, now would be the opportunity to come forward.
If you would like to speak, the commission would like to hear anyone who has something to say, so please come forward.
Ira Hishmati, 315 La Hacienda Drive. I see the good piece of residential property there, and there is a good builder that decided to build good houses, and I'm all for it. It's all good. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Please come forward.
John Thayer, 1819 Bay Boulevard. I guess when there's some kind of contest, but I was born in the county so long ago, I don't even remember who the president was. Okay, but we started coming to Indian Rocks when I was 10 in the early 60s. Then I brought my kids back here and used to stay next door, almost next door to RB, and the kids learned to fish on the pier. And I got back here 13 years ago, and I voted in every single one of those elections since then. And everybody's for retaining the small town feel. Bar none. It's like better than apple pie. So I do not have a huge objection to the project. My objection is the height limits. They're perfectly able to build this kind of structures in lower heights and not give that away. But parking does concern me also, because in a condo project, usually they have some kind of parking for visitors. I see none here. So I would urge the council to get some more information on this and straighten out a few of these items and not give away those height restrictions, because we're the only place on Gulf Boulevard that's got them left. And we're here because it doesn't look like Madeira Beach or even Indian Shores. And we plan to stay here. So I'd like for the commission to take that into consideration. Don't let your first PUD here be turned in to be synonymous with, profits unlimited for developers or something. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward at this time? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask Ms. Crespo to come back
Actually,
forward.
the staff will come forward.
Staff, do you have any added comments?
I just wanted to make a note again that the special exception was passed 2 years ago that did not require the business in this area. We didn't touch on that for people who were not at the last meeting. So I just want to make that note. And then also the exhibits, the landscape, the elevations, and the site plan are all included in the ordinance.
Patty, do you want to touch on the parking, or would you rather that?
I'll have,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, before they proceed, if I may, just to advise, just because it hasn't been specifically addressed, during the last meeting, I advised that since we are rezoning, and this would change the zoning for these two properties, that we include in the ordinance for this particular rezoned area that all of the city's ordinances and regulations governing the operation of short-term rentals shall apply in this zoning district. That has been added to the ordinance since first reading to make that more explicit and clear. So that has been done, and that is the extent to which we are able to regulate short-term rentals. For now, as you heard at the beginning of this meeting, the House of Representatives and Senate are likely, for the state of Florida, are likely to take up new short-term rental legislation in the coming session. It sounded like it would likely resemble what was, excuse me, what was proposed last session, which may eliminate the ability to regulate in the manner that most municipalities, including Indian Rocks Beach, is regulated. I also want to note that in addition to the public comment we had this evening, there was additional correspondence received throughout the day, and those have been submitted to the record and submitted to each member of the body as they evaluate this application. There was a representation made concerning the staff's ability to manipulate the terms of the agreement or the ordinance. Afterwards, I would point you to 110-649, where for all PUD developments, there is provision for the city manager or their designee to make minor adjustments, but only in a manner that would decrease the intensity. The number of dwelling units is the same or less. The open space in the same general location and in the same amount is greater. The floor area of the buildings is the same or less. Streets follow approximately the same layout. Access point for the project site are the same or less in number and in the same general location. An extension of time limits for developments, there's a very specific provision governing that. So that is those are the manners in which staff can make those minor adjustments referenced. And finally, though Hetty touched on it, in 110-647, it specifies no fewer than 13 different things that must be submitted, which do include survey, site plans, traffic analysis, etc. So all of that is part of the materials and incorporated in the agreement. I just wanted to make sure you were clear on those legal elements. With that, it is still the applicant's turn.
We certainly appreciate all the great public comment on the project, particularly residents of the Cove that have come out in support of this project, understanding how that one functions, that it's a great addition to the community. On that note, I'll touch on the parking. So each unit will have 2 internal parking spaces as well as a 3rd space in the driveways, so 3 parking spaces per unit. There will be the ability to park in that internal street for any of that occasional guest overflow parking. We did look at inserting other guest spaces within the community that we think that will ultimately take away from the green space, the feel within the community. This has been proven to function in the Cove with this number of spaces per unit. And then with the internal parking, we think that will more than be sufficient based upon how this exact type of community functions in their other areas. So we would respectfully request the parking as proposed through the application. We are in agreement with staff that this is consistent with your comprehensive plan. This is actually less density than is allowed on your property, on this property by the comprehensive plan. Meets your land development code criteria. The changes proposed will be an improvement to the project, and the PUD zoning district is not setting a negative precedent in any way, but really setting a very high bar for the city to utilize moving forward in terms of enhanced setbacks, shelters, sidewalks, and all those items that we mentioned this evening. So we would respectfully request your approval of the project with all of these exhibits binding attached to that PUD agreement, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any more remaining questions for the applicant?
Do you have any questions for me?
So we'll close the public hearing and all testimony at this point. It'll turn back to the body. Again, your charge tonight is in a quasi-judicial function. You are not to be deciding based solely on emotion or policy, but rather on criteria and competent substantial evidence based on the testimony provided to you this evening. With that, I leave it to you to discuss.
I'm going to start our discussions amongst the commissioners, and I would like to read you something, a statement that I have written. After our August meeting last month, there were some social media posts with a message to the IRB residents. And the statement read as follows: Tonight, IRB commissioners voted to increase height of buildings along Gulf Boulevard. Diane Flagg, Phil Hanna, Cookie Kennedy, Nick Palumba, and Ed Hoffnagel voted to allow a 32-unit residential complex to increase its height substantially over current zoning. The land was previously zoned business, which typically has one-story buildings, but now allows the zoning height to be 47 feet higher than the road or sidewalk. That's the building height you'll see while driving or walking. A lot of apples to oranges figures were presented to rationalize this. There will be a second reading of the ordinance, but when the commission is controlled by people with real estate and development interests and their buddies, that's what happens. Goodbye, small town IRB. Watch out for their coming revisioning of our town. We see where this is going. Added to this post was this statement. This big box building will be substantially higher than the majority of condos on the east side of Gulf Boulevard and quite a few on the west side. More concerning setbacks, height increase, were traded for increased setbacks. They don't say that against city code, they are allowing the setbacks to be used by the developer for a large pool, cabana, equipment, building. An added post. Isn't having a pool in the front a concession in itself? Another post. This commission is talking out of both sides of their mouth when they walk the neighborhoods during elections and say they want to keep the small town feel. Might be of interest to check out the prospective developers to see if any of our local politicians have a horse in the race, as in financial matters. Another post. Seems like they are now in the back pocket of the developers. Another post. It's too late, the council pockets are being paddled by the developer. Those were some of the media posts. Now I'd like to explain the process, some definitions, and share a few comments with all of you. This is a 2-acre parcel with 2 different zoning designations. The front parcel on Gulf Boulevard is zoned business and was given a special exception in 2017 to be able to have residential in the front. A special exception is not a zoning change. This was determined because the back half of the property is zoned RM2. RM2 designation stands for medium density, multiple family residential zoning. The front had 5 feet height and the back half had a 47 feet height allowance. The property could build 34 units. The front setback is 25 feet. These codes have been in place for years. The proposal is, as you've heard, as follows. The back 46 feet designation would be lowered to 42 feet. The front would rise from 35 to 42 feet. The front setback would double to 50 feet, and there would be a decrease in amount of units from 34 units to 32. Trees surrounding the project, sidewalks, and bus stop designed to match all the coastal bus shelters throughout IRB. The facade has been changed to a coastal Key West style and colors. There has been several posts concerning green space. I have lived in IRB. Please don't talk while we're speaking up here. I've lived in IRB for over 35 years and I was born in this county. This property has been privately owned. The city has not owned this property in all the years that I've been here. And to the best of my knowledge, has never owned it. The property has been there vacant for many years. No one has stepped forward to purchase the property in all the time that it was vacant to establish a green space. A PUD is a planned unit development. It is used on parcels a half acre or more. A PUD is put in place for flexibility within a project and to add stronger control for the city while a project is developed. A PUD has absolutely nothing to do with rentals of condos, townhomes, or of any piece concerning duration of stay. This project for the record, has stated the townhomes will have 2 times a year. That would mean 6-month rental or live year-round. It has been mentioned this is the last parcel we have for mixed use. Truth is, Casa Italia is a mixed use. Valerie Insurance is a mixed use. 18 on the Rocks has mixed use. And the parcel on the other side of 18 that is vacant is also a mixed use, as well as Laughing Lizard, to name a few. The property at 2501 Gulf Boulevard had 3 previous attempts at mixed use. We were told it was not economically feasible to construct mixed use after further investigation. I have been studying mixed use for over 30 years. I have presented numerous reports to cities. Pinellas County wrote an article published in Florida League of Cities, in Quality Cities, and I put my money where my mouth is because I have a mixed use property for over 25 years. We did a presentation to Ford Pinellas, collaborating with Professor Green from USF, who did the original study on IRB on Gulf Boulevard concerning mixed use. And together we researched many communities. So I am a very huge proponent of mixed use. We spent hours studying these plans, the parcel, and the very odd 2 zoning codes of this project we are discussing tonight. From the questions and analysis of the commission, I am led to believe at the last meeting that they too spent considerable amounts of time. Each one of us have been part of the visioning sessions. We have an extended family of the Homeowners Association, Action 2000, and folks from this community who came and listened, voiced opinions, and held discussions on how we envision our city as we continue to live, work, and play in Indian Rocks Beach. And we will continue the conversation in the next session where everyone is invited for the visioning in October, as was stated earlier. As an elected official, each one of us take an oath when we are sworn in. Each one of us, during the first hearing concerning the property and this hearing at 2501 Gulf Boulevard, were questioned by our attorney if we had ex parte communication with the project owner, the property, anyone involved. We all acknowledged we had not. The August meeting was the first time I met the individuals involved in this project. Social media is a powerful tool. One can write slanderous comments. There isn't a person on the commission that was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. All of us work very hard. We volunteer our time, energy, and love this community. We take our job very serious. We don't get paid a lot of money. We are not padding our pockets, getting kickbacks, or have private dealings with the developers. And as our mayor, I felt compelled that someone born, especially born here, and lived in this community most of my life, when I see individuals making comments about commissioners or singling out a segment of our community who go to work every day to make a living and love IRB just like all of us do, I feel it's my duty to set the record straight. And I want to thank everyone that reached out to me from the Post, came to my shop, viewed the project, gave input, sat with me, made suggestions. I appreciate all of you and all of your comments tonight. And with that, do any of the commissioners have any other comments that you would like to make or questions that you want to ask?
No, thank you. I think we'll have discussion during the motion.
And is there a motion to be made?
I would like to move to approve ordinance 2019-05. Do I have to add any amendments to that as amended?
Based on the, earlier in the meeting, there was consensus.
As amended to explicitly state that the units may not be more than 2 stories over parking.
Understood. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion, debate, or analysis on this matter?
Yes, the maker, I'll have a comment. We will continue to build out the retail environment in the city as, well, private property owners will do that. This is private property. This is not government property. 10 years, there was the ability to buy that lot, make it a green space, golf course, tennis court, whatever you wanted to do with it. No one wanted to do that. 10 years, planned unit or Publix was proposed, and another mixed use was proposed. They were great ideas that some of them got approval until they went to the bank to get some money, and the bank said, no, we're not going to finance that. So it's really great to talk about what could be, but we have to deal with what comes to the commission for approval. There could be some semblance of these townhomes without the PUD. They would be closer to the street, they would be higher in the back, and I kind of think they'd be uglier, a lot uglier. So we talk about mixed use and retail. The only kind of retail that's going to proliferate in our small town is most likely going to be experiential type retail, because we all say we want retail, but then we all go buy stuff on Amazon. So the reality is the kind of retail that's going to be here 10, 15 years from now is going to be driven by property owners who take financial risks to build businesses that they think can survive. And one of the up and coming mixed use models is VRBO on the top and empty stores on the bottom. So just be careful what you say you want to have, because I don't necessarily believe that having a quasi hotel and a vacant retail space on the bottom is good for the city. I think that the developer has done a decent job of accommodating our requests. As a person, I find it difficult that we're picking colors. Sorry, I can't pick any colors. My wife didn't dress me. I picked plaids and stripes. So, but this is a development in terms of density, which is 2 stories over parking, and by definition, that's not a condo canyon. That's not building heights that are soaring over what is to be expected in a normal development. 10-foot ceilings, 10-foot garages, those are kind of normal these days. So you can say, oh, they could put a 7-foot carport, then they couldn't bring their pickup truck inside. And, oh, then they're not going to have pickup trucks, they'll drive, Priuses. But come on, let's be realistic. People want high ceilings. They want garages that are going to be able to accommodate their vehicles. And the building height is 39 feet versus 35 feet. There is a 3-foot differential which has been added to accommodate potential changes in the ground level to support drainage requirements from SWIFMUD. SWIFMUD is the Southwest Florida Water Management District, and they own all the water in Florida. You collect rain barrel. If you put a rain barrel out and collect that rain, it's not your rain, it's SWIFMUD's rain. They own all of the groundwater in Florida, and we have to follow their rules. Don't get me started on SWIFMUD. Anyway, I do think that the set of compromises are ideal, actually. Lowering the building heights in the back is ideal. Having an increased setback is ideal. Having the entrances and exits off of Gulf Boulevard is ideal. I think that makes it for a safer and more pedestrian-friendly development. Do I like the backs of the buildings facing Gulf Boulevard? No, not particularly, but I'd rather have that than have cars just jutting out left and right from 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 or 12 driveways. So, you have to make compromises, because you can't always get every single perfect thing that you'd like to have. Would I like there to be a coffee shop? Sure, but come on, Taylor Morrison, who is working with the owner of this property as a financial investor, is using a model to build what is the best use for this property right now. If someone else had come to this commission with a financed plan and included a coffee shop, I think we'd all be happy. And sure, someone would come and complain about the trips per day that coffee shop would increase on the Gulf Boulevard. But I'm going to lend my support to this. Do I like everything about it? No. Do I think that the city staff have done a great job? Absolutely. Do I think Taylor Morrison has made a respectable showing in the community? Yeah, I think you have. Am I willing to give you the benefit of the doubt that you'll be working closely with the city to make this as nice as you've done in the past? Yeah, I think I can go with that. And I would ask you, my fellow commissioners, to please vote with me in support of this.
The second.
Well put, Ed, and Cookie, thank you very much for straightening things out. Sitting up here is not the easiest job in the world. What I think I enjoy the most about it is listening to what you have to say. We don't always agree, but you're my neighbors, and your opinion is definitely not going on to deaf ears. We really care. At the end of the day, we're not going to do anything up here that's going to harm the city, because it's going to harm us too. One comment that came out in some of the readings that we had today was, we're going to become Sand Key. No, we're not. This commission and the next 20 commissions after it will never allow Indian Rocks Beach to do that. We're talking 4 feet, yeah, but we're not going to go nuts like that. I fly my drone in real estate, and I have had listings up at in Sand Key. And with my drone, I fly up and I look at the altimeter, and I'm 220 feet in the air. No way 2 stories over parking is acceptable. 200 feet, just a little out of my zone. So I don't think we're going to go that direction. I think it's good, and one thing that I really like, years ago some of the people talked about Condo Canyon. I remember one of the first times I ran for office, they said, oh, just don't make it a condo canyon. I kept hearing this condo canyon. And it stuck with me. And when I first saw this, I said, you know what? This is back. This is not condo canyon. I like the fact that we've got that green space. And then somebody mentioned green space tonight. And when you look at it a little further back, if you will, we kind of get the best of both worlds. We get nice quality construction. We get rid of a lot that's been there for 15 years that hasn't done anything but maybe be a coyote den. I don't know that as fact. But it's nice to know that we have that green space as well, and I think that's important. So in the future, let's continue to do this. Let's continue to work. But if you've got ideas, whether it's going to be a park, or whether you want green space, or whether you want a coffee shop, please bring it forward, and not 5 minutes before we have a meeting, or 2 days before we have a meeting. We're your commission. The people who follow us will be your commission. We're here for you. You're our boss. So that's what we want to do. So I think it's a good start for us. And Taylor Morrison, without saying that I will, your name's on this project too. So when people look at it, they see Taylor Morrison, so do us proud. Thank you.
Diane, do you have any comments or anything you would like to ask?
No, I think some of the comments made by 18 on the Rocks might be considered by the developer in respecting some of their requests. And as Ed said, I think it's the best use right now we can use for that particular parcel. I do think that the setback is a big deal, because we always look for green space, and we don't want the condo canyon that everybody refers to. And I think this is a good step in allowing some of that visual that we want on Gulf Boulevard. Also, the trolley stop and the bike racks, it's keeping with our positive pedestrian theme that we'd like to see along Gulf Boulevard. So that's another enhancement, and it will definitely create less traffic on the road than any mixed use or commercial project would. So for those reasons, I'm in favor of the project as well, and I approve.
Can you think of any of the other questions that came up? We had the parking, we had Nancy's questions about, are we missing anything to ask? Ms. Crespo? Anything left that you can think of? No? Okay, with that, can you think of any more as far as, yeah, okay. Okay, with that, Deanne, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Fly,
Yes.
Commissioner Hannah,
Yes?
Commissioner Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes, motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 7, other legislative matters, we have none. We have no work session items. Is there any other business to come before this commission? No? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. And-
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Pleasure.